Oh, yeah. Everyone's real happy then.
Do I detect a note of sarcasm?
Are you kidding me? This baby is off the charts. Why?
Oh, a sarcasm detector. Oh, that's a really useful invention.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. It's Thursday. It's time to get complicated with my good friend Gevian Dargan from Animated Concepts. How you doing, Gevian?
I'm doing well, Wes. Things are moving along with Animated Concepts. Looking forward to being able to make some announcements next month, and I'm very excited about finally getting starting to move towards getting this thing off the ground. So keep your if you haven't already follow me on Twitter. You go to @AnimatedCon, and on Facebook, as you can see on the screen below, go ahead and like the page. So when we start dropping those announcements, you'll be the first ones to know.
Absolutely. I know there are a lot of viewers that are waiting for these big announcements so they can come and support the new publisher. Now, that's not what we're talking about today, Gevian, because that's not complicated. That's just good news.
That's right. That's easy.
There was a recent special on Netflix that's got everybody up in arms. It was the Dave Chappelle The Closer special. I believe it's his last Netflix special for a while. And he ends up addressing a lot of the pushback or feedback that he's received from the LGBTQ plus, specifically trans community, about his previous specials that he's done on Netflix that have been very lucrative for Netflix. They've certainly made a lot of money. They've gotten a lot of views. I watched it. Did you watch it?
Yes, sir. Watched it. I've watched it 3 times already.
I haven't watched it that many times. I can only watch stuff like that, obviously, when the kids are sleeping. And then, most of the time they're sleeping, I'm doing work. But I did get to catch it one time. And I did personally come away offended, Gevian.
Now, why is that? Why were you? What could have possibly offended you in a Dave Chappelle special?
I didn't think it was that funny. I only laughed out loud a couple times. I had a couple of chuckles, and that was about it. I was like, is this a comedy special, or is this his verbal essay?
Yeah, so that's the chief complaint that I've heard from most of my friends. That, and I was talking to basically my pastor about this last night, and he said that the problem he had with the special was that he needed to decide, is he going to be a stand-up comedian or a preacher? So that was his biggest complaint. That it was like, like you said, it was like
poetry jams. It's a comedy special. Gosh.
Well, I think he did start off on he definitely started off on Def Jam Comedy Hour, but I don't know if he made a side trip to the poetry. But no, it's definitely more spoken word. If you want like more spoken word, but it's definitely more of a commentary as opposed to comedy. I found it funny. There was a couple of times that I laughed out loud.
Absolutely. I had 2 big-time laughs and a couple inside chuckles, but that's almost an hour-long special. In a Dave Chappelle special, you're expecting to be like, snorting soda out your nose or whatever you're drinking and stuff when he gets you on one that you weren't expecting.
Well, that's why he keeps saying to people he wants them to take the 3 specials, which I think was the first one was just the Dave Chappelle one. Then the second one was Dave Chappelle Sticks and Stones, and then finally the closer to look at it. He's claiming that it's basically a body of work that you have to look at. And if you kind of look at the intros tend to get a little bit more deeper and deeper, especially the openings as you go along. Because I didn't get a chance to watch Dave Chappelle one again, the first one. But if the first one's a different special, by all means, correct me in the comment section. But I know what the second one, Sticks and Stones, he basically opens quoting from a fairly profound line from Prince's 1999. Which leads into him talking about Anthony Bourdain's suicide and get into a little black and white black versus white commentary then. And then with this one, I don't know the name of the group, but there's a much more deeper rap song than probably most these days, which he opens with. So there could seem some legitimacy that he always meant for it, the last one, to kind of be like an op-ed. An op-ed, if you will, as opposed to a straight comedy special. But that's definitely one of the chief complaints I've heard, is that, make me laugh. I don't want to think. So
I don't mind thinking. I didn't have a problem with the special. Me personally, I was offended that it's a comedy special where it didn't have a lot of laughs. I thought what he said was pretty deep. It's certainly what I came away from it was, thought that this was the third part of a trilogy, is that this is a person that was out there that, he makes fun of people for a living, and that's how he does his comedy, and that's how he gets his point across. And it's hurt him, the type of feedback that he's received from the trans community, that they think that he's out there to harm them personally rather than, kind of treating them like they're in on the joke. That's the way I took it. That he was, you know, he's not apologizing, but he's saying, hey, listen, like, this is what I'm doing here. I'm not trying to hurt you, but I'm not going to treat anybody special. I'm going to treat you like everybody else.
Yeah, because essentially, you know, and some people made this comment about Chappelle is that basically he is an equal opportunity troll. I watched one commentary on this from it's one of my favorite podcasts, Bad Faith, where the host is Brianna Joy Gray. I definitely suggest if you like what's going on It's Complicated, I think you will equally like what's going on Bad Faith, because a lot of the approach that I try to adopt doing It's Complicated, I base off of Brianna Joy Gray's, but they were talking about this special as well. And the whole thing was that she describes Chappelle as basically like a Gen X edgelord. And I think that's being a little dismissive and a little bit too simplistic, but I could kind of take a point. He's more
insightful than just an edgelord. I think an edgelord can say anything to get a reaction. I think Dave Chappelle is trying to make a commentary on society and culture.
Exactly, because when you look at the Sticks and Stones one in particular, which was one that she did not like at all, but there was one joke that he told in which was kind of more like the joke / commentary thing, where he talks about the encounter he had with standards and practices. So when he got called in standards and practices, they say he couldn't use the F word, which is the gay slur, in one of the skits that he did. And then, so he basically, like, you know, he says, okay, well, thank you for bringing that to my attention. And he goes to get up to walk away. And he says, oh, wait a minute. Thought came to his head. He comes back. And it's funny that, you know, you say, I can't use this word here, but you don't seem to have a problem with me using the N word like 30 times in the same skit, or much less throughout the program. So then the standards and practice lady, whom he says he had a great relationship with, says, well, you know, what you don't understand this, Dave, is that you can't say the F word because you're not gay. So he says, but I'm also not an N word either. And so it's like, and I think the point that he's trying to make is that if you're mad with the closures to trans community, what the specials and what he's done is, it's like, and even Brianna Joy Gray in her commentary had to say, you know, well, what about how many times he used the word bitch? How many times did he use the N word? How many times did he use all these other words to talk about other people in a way that was very disparaging or dismissive, or, you know, or not kind, if you will? And nobody seems to be in an uproar about that, even though he got the facts wrong with the baby joke. But the fact that it turns out everybody's been debunking that one, saying that basically the baby shot and I don't even know who the baby is other than when I watched the special. So I had to look it up afterwards. The baby guy, when he shot someone in a Walmart, that was in self-defense, that's why he basically didn't get canceled. There's still you can still consider the larger point that when something happens to basically black people whom he claims to advocate for, Dave Chappelle, is that there's less of a response, less of a concern about these things than it is with, he definitely says in terms of whites, and even you could say other ethnic groups when it comes to at least American culture. And in some cases, I've known people who would argue global culture as well. So, yeah.
Well, it's crazy. They're definitely protected groups, and I think that's what he's coming up against. And you see that all over culture. There are very few groups that you can actually go out there and you know, make fun of, use as the butt of jokes, or even denigrate in society. You know, obviously, I'm part of one of them. And he even mentions it in the closer when he says, y'all thought I was talking about only about the trans community. He lays out, you know, some examples. He goes, I was talking about white people. And then he goes, you know, he gives his examples there. And it's like, yeah, because it's easy to crap on white people and you're not going to get any pushback. I don't know, Gevian, I'm going to be honest. I think white people might be the only people that could take jokes nowadays from other ethnicities.
Well, I'll put it like this, man. and that might be a special skill that's developed because of the standard that you have in societies. It's so many sides of the world. Who gives a crap? Look, when you're on top, when you're on top, and people are like, it's like it really doesn't mean anything. Like, I'm almost getting to that point in my life where it's like, you know, look, things are going to a certain point, because this is what you really, for all those out there listening, I say for all the young people, I say 35 and under. Your whole goal in life should be, 1, to find something you're passionate about, but 2, if you truly want to enjoy life, make enough money that you get what's called FU money. That means you have enough money that basically it doesn't matter what anybody says to you or anybody what does to you, with the exception of the IRS and maybe the cops. You can move through life and not have to be concerned one bit about what somebody says or does to you, because you got enough money to basically say F you. So, and my ultimate expression of that dream is, I tell all my family, my friends, is that I plan on one day, God willing, to be able to buy a piece of property that I can. By the time I drive up to my gate, from my gate to my house, a full 60 minutes goes by. If I've done that, I have arrived. And the only person I got to deal with or mess with is the bear that won't take the hint, that keeps showing up on my property looking for.
You just call your wife a bear?
No, I'm talking about the bear that if I have enough property, there's be some dumb bear that comes in there sniffing around my refrigerator. It's like, get out of here, son.
You're going to be in Montana? Like, I don't know. For me, I want to buy an alpaca. You know
what's that?
It's like a llama.
Oh, exactly. It's got to be some status symbol that in some way you tell everybody.
I don't particularly like alpacas. I don't particularly like llamas, whatever, but I think it'd be kind of dope to have one and be like, why do you have that alpaca? Because I fucking can't.
That's right, because I can't. Exactly. You need to have some kind of status symbol or status situation in your life where basically you're letting people know from the get-go. It's like, look, if you want to come up here, just be cool and be chill, but don't come here with all this nonsense that you think you're going to drag me into, because I've transcended that with my wealth and with my symbol, with my current financial situation. I don't have to deal with this nonsense anymore. And that's what it comes down to. Because other than that, that's what Chappelle claims he took offense to. And I want to say it was the closer that he mentioned it, was that was the first time he had heard the phrase of punching down, which I'm kind of surprised that he hadn't heard that phrase before being in comedy. Because I've heard other comedians talk about the one of the hallmarks of a joke not being effective or not being a good joke is that you never punch down, you always punch up. When you punch down, it's almost like you're asking for trouble. So I'm not, maybe he never heard that phrase before, or maybe he might have been disingenuous for the sake of the joke.
Could have been part of
the bit. But it's like for the part of the bit, because I've definitely heard comedians say that long before this came out about you don't punch down. It's like you don't make jokes about who can defend themselves. And the thing is that was a problem that a lot of people had with the Chappelle Show when it first came on, and I'm talking about black people. So
man, I loved it. I was like, I can't believe anybody would make this. This is beautiful.
Oh no, there was a black people who said the same thing. Oh no, because the problem with the Chappelle Show, and for those who want to identify as part of the black community proper or large, I say at large, not proper, but at large, is that this is inside talk being told outside. You don't do this. It is an unspoken rule. You don't expose how we talk and deal with each other like on freaking national TV. But now he went and did it, and a lot of people warned him. If they didn't warn him directly, definitely I know a lot of people that I talked to were just like, yo, this is going. I said, look, he's doing it. You can't deny it's funny. So I said, you gotta get over the it's funny part, because the joint is funny. And I know what you're saying, but I said he better have a good reason. He better have a good rationale for being able to do this when somebody questions him about it. So he did an interview on Charlie Rose. Charlie Rose asked him about basically the tone and the tenor of the humor. He said, and he used, and this is why I felt he tripped up. He used the Russell Simmons explanation that Russell Simmons uses for basically gangster rap music, that is street reporting. And it's like, what street do you live on, man? But it's like it's street reporting. And then Dave sort of used a similar, because I haven't seen that interview in a while, so please don't hold me to God, Ken and Country on this one. But he used a sort of a simple example of sort of street reporting. And then when he quit, the reason why he quit, according to him, was that he was doing a taping one time and he saw this white guy in the audience, probably looks like listen to Rush Limbaugh, and the dude was laughing a little bit too hard, and he realized that there was a significant portion of his audience who was laughing at him and not with him. And it's like, bruh, you're about 3 years too late on that one. Anybody could tell. Anybody who was
I was laughing with it, man. I liked, I thought that was brilliant. But I don't know, man. It seems like he just had a nervous breakdown. No. He was vehement about it not being a nervous breakdown. That's why even in the closer, he's like, when he was talking about the Me Too movement, and he said, he agreed with what they were talking about. He just didn't agree with the way they were going about it. He said, they should have found some woman who was busting the hump in the mailroom, fired all their agents, and then got him and made her their agent and really turned this thing around.
because his point is like, he was like, and the thing is, I'll lead the feminist movement. He said, the reason why I'll lead it is because I'm the one who, when it came to getting off the bus, walked away from the bus when they were offering $50 million. So he does not attribute it to a nervous breakdown. So he has to own that. And so that means if you know that, then the simple fact of the matter is like, bro, I know people told him that where he was going with it, it's one thing to say the N-word in your comedy routines, even that is considered problematic in the black community, but specifically because Richard Pryor used to do it. And Richard Pryor is pretty much considered, if not the godfather, the king, the god of stand-up comedy in America, at least. He did a special where he said once he went to Africa, much like Dave did after he had his epiphany, he went to Africa and Richard Pryor came back and said he would not use the N-word again in his routines. I think, I want to say it was live at the Sunset Strip. Again, correct me if I got the wrong special or I got the wrong film. But that's what, and Pryor made that film like almost over 40 years ago, 50 years ago at this point. So for the fact that younger black comedians are still using the N-word and not understanding why it's problematic, all right, fine. But when you go to what Chappelle went with it, it's like, dude, it's one thing if you can say nobody told me, there's no way you could have seen this coming. But it's like when people were saying it and you could see it coming, that's on you, man. And I like Chappelle. Don't get me wrong.
First episode when he kind of dropped the bomb and said, this is going to be like nothing you've ever seen, where you had the blind KKK member.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant. It was brilliant.
It's like anybody can be stupid.
Brilliant.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I love the take on it. And then the Wayne Brady one, where it turns out he's the most gangster person in Hollywood. He just has a cover identity. Oh,
exactly. But the Wayne Brady one was born out of the fact of that when it was a Paul Mooney, when he was doing Negro Damas, I think it was. And he basically said that Wayne Brady makes Brian Gumble look like Malcolm X. And that line was devastating. And it was just like, and so the story was, if I remember listening to the commentary episode, was he said that he he said in the show, he ran into Wayne Brady at the airport. And Wayne Brady was like actually offended. His feelings were hurt. He was like a little heartbroken because, why? Because it's making a meta commentary on blackness. Like, who's considered black? It's like, so Wayne Brady's
stick is aimed kind of at white ladies.
There you go. 33-year-old. What we now would call Karens. Karens. That's what it was aimed at. My mother loved Wayne Brady.
Nice smile, going up there and singing and dancing and having
singing and dancing and being as non-threatening as you could possibly be, which is in some corners of the black community. I guess because we, much like with woke and SJW, we also have our phrases that basically they've been said so much they don't mean anymore, like cooning or fetch and step it or whatever it is. So that's what Wayne Brady basically looked like. Like Brian Gumble kind of occupied that space where he wasn't quite OJ, but he quite hadn't sold out. quite sold out yet. And Wayne Brady, we're talented. And I don't think Wayne Brady ever presented himself as someone who wasn't quote unquote down with the community. It was just people just didn't like his presentation and his affect. So it's like he when he went to the airport,
it was right for the show that he was on. He was on that Whose Line It Is It Anyway? He was like,
oh yeah, then and he's no, I got you. My mom loved Wayne Brady, so when we showed her that skit, she was just like, she didn't run away from Wayne Brady, but she was just like. But I'll say mom was hip enough to know, she knew what the point they was making. She was like, that just ain't right. And the funny thing is, because the way the skit sort of ends is, it's like when he pulls up to the white cop, and the white cop's like, oh, my mom, basically, mom loved you. And he pulls out the mic and starts singing in the spotlight. I forgot what the line, he says, he snaps his neck. He's done. Oh, no, it's great
Dave's
stuff.
so intimidated, he's scared. He's not going to leave.
Because it's based on Training Day, and for those who, we all know it's Training Day. So Wayne is playing the Denzel Washington part, and that was the other layer to it, was that a lot of people were upset about when Denzel Washington got the Oscar for Training Day, because it was just like, yo, this is like the worst representation. Well, it ain't the worst representation, but it's like really he has to play like basically a dirty, nasty / almost ghetto black man who's a villain of the piece to get the Oscar when he played all these other roles much more positive and life affirming that he could have gotten it for.
It's like when Scorsese finally got his Oscar and you're like, this is the one? I mean, I like
exactly. And so that was the point that and I know he's probably canceled. You don't know. But that's the point where Woody Allen, after he's probably been canceled at this point, that's the point that Woody Allen made. Woody Allen said is that that's always the case with the Oscars. It's just like, you go, whenever you see the win one, you go, well, he should have won it for that one like 10 years ago. So it's like,
he didn't win one for, what's the one where he and Morgan Freeman with Matthew Broderick, Glory?
No, he didn't win for that. No,
he should have, because that shit had me crying.
I don't think he did. Let me look it up real quick. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't, because it's best actress. I don't know if he won. Yeah, I don't know if he won best supporting actor for that.
He may have for that one. That was like, man, this is like powerful stuff. I remember watching that movie. That would affected me.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. It was more like about who won the best actor, because that's the other story behind the Oscars. I think it was the 49th Oscars, the 49th annual Oscars that he won it at, and because I was working at a video store at the time. So, one of the customers came in who was white and asked me, he was like, he had noticed something. And I said, go ahead, because I know what you're about to say. He said he noticed that Denzel won the best, I think that year, Denzel won the best actor. Halle Berry won best actress for Monsters Ball. Maybe we can start on that one. And then Sidney Poitier got the Lifetime Achievement Award. It was all in the same program. So he was like, why are they doing that? Because I guess he needed to talk to a black guy he trusted to confirm his suspicions. I said, dude, it's because it's the year before the 50th, and they don't want to go into the 50th. They got to
make it up.
That's right. They had to make up. They had to make up time, dude. They had to make up ground. You do not want to go into the 50th anniversary Oscar Awards anniversary, not having done that, and you don't plan on giving a bunch of awards like that at the time. So he did. So he did win Best Supporting Actor.
Okay, that's what I kind of thought.
Yeah, he just had won the Best Actor. Yeah, he just did one Best. He didn't just win Best Actor. Yeah. So it was like, I was like, dude, it's whether we like it or not. Like you said, Goodfellas exists. What exists in our culture, whether we like it or not, whether it's from entertainment to politics itself, is racial politics. And it's like, and it makes demands, it puts obligations on you, whether you like it or not. Hopefully one day we'll get to the point where that isn't the case. But until we resolve that issue, you're always going to have specials like Dave Chappelle's The Closer.
What do you think about the word woke? That was kind of appropriated from black culture in America, where like you were woke to the system that was in place that you were kind of fighting against, and then it was kind of stolen by every other group that decided that they were more oppressed than black people.
Yeah, and the thing with woke is actually a term that when I looked it up at one point, because I said I remember hearing this before, or at the very least if I hadn't heard it, it was like, you just kind of like at a certain point you learn how to operate like that. But it comes from 1934. And I'm not going to go into the academic definition of it, but basically you're right. It's like you start to realize that you've been looking at the system in a certain way and operating in the system in a certain way where you don't realize you're not actually in some level accomplishing what you think you're accomplishing, or things are being done that you think have been done. So like I use Bill Clinton as an example. And there was an older white gentleman, my good friend Joe Hubbard, who clued me into why I should not be for Bill Clinton. Because he was like, you realize Bill Clinton did more damage to the black community than any Republican ever could. I was like, what are you talking about? He's supposed to be the first black president. That's what my leaders and my elders have been telling me. And then I had to go back and look, and I was like, dang. I was like, wait a minute now. I said, three strikes and you're out. Welfare reform, but also, and people say to this day that Bill Clinton passed Republican legislation or Republican legislation that even Republicans couldn't pass. And that is basically what it means to be woke. So now, bringing it to the modern day, this is why I definitely didn't vote for Donald Trump, but I sure wasn't going to go start voting for Joe Biden or start repping a caper for Mike Bloomberg. It's like, are you serious? And there are a lot of black people, a lot of political pundits, particularly on the Karen Hunter show, so I get you in trouble with somebody else, particularly on the Karen Hunter show, who was sitting there banging tables talking about because Trump was so terrible, I'm going to vote for Mike Bloomberg. If that's the case, don't vote. Or at least vote for Jill Stein or whatever the Russian agent that's being controlled of the third party. There is no way anybody should be banging a table on Sirius XM, who's black and lives in New York and is female, talking about you should be voting for Mike Bloomberg just to stop Donald Trump. That ain't even the lesser two evils. That's just evil across the board.
You know what's crazy about Trump? Sure, he had the mean tweets, and he wasn't always presidential in his presentation and the way he communicated. But you look at the body of work of what he did, at least within the black community, like historically low unemployment numbers, the wealth was going up. Now,
that doesn't make up for all the housing discrimination he did early on in his career with his dad. Look, the thing about Trump was that you saw Trump coming from you saw Trump. Yeah, look. There's plenty of people who now want to admit that they used to watch The Apprentice like it was religious. Okay, I'm talking about black people. They used to watch that joint all the time. I watched it for the first 3 years, and the only reason why me and Trump got off board was that whole birther nonsense. Because I was like, all right, that's how you gonna play it like that? Forget you, man. That was the whole, and I knew about the whole Central Park 5 thing before that. So he was never clean. But it's like, all right. Y'all want to do the Wendy Williams? I'll give you that. The rehabilitation thing, that's fine. But when he went to that birther nonsense, I was like, okay, now I have to completely be done with you at this point because you're playing too much. You're playing too much, Trump. But the thing with Trump is you saw him coming from a mile away. So anybody who supports Trump, don't support Trump, whatever it is, at least you know why you're doing it. This joint with Biden and Bloomberg and the Democratic Party, all that nonsense, it's like they lost their way. And what I mean by they lost their way is the reason why they lost their way is basically because they pretty much got punked into it. And what I mean by they got punked into it is that they spent so many years being perceived anyway as doing the right thing. There's certain tactics they would not lower themselves to. And the reason why so many people are mad about the cancel culture thing on both sides is because they finally learned a lesson. They said, look, ends justify the means. So if you must cancel somebody and be a total complete hypocrite about how you would do it with someone else, as long as you eliminate your enemy and get the outcome, you are now fighting just as effectively as the people, as your political brothers and sisters on the other side. So I can't be mad at the left for doing the cancel culture thing because they've basically been shamed into it.
No, here's my whole point,
into it.
If Trump hates the black community, he had a really bad way of showing it. Because if you look at his presidency and the way he governs and the laws that he passed, it turns out that they were very beneficial.
No, and to that point is that's why he reads Mein Kampf and stuff like that. Because the thing is that even Hitler understood the train's got to run on time. So you gotta get somebody. You don't have to give them like the brisket off the table, but you better at least sprinkle some crumbs down there, so at least somebody can say, "Well, at least he did that." So they'll either ignore or overlook all the stuff that he didn't do. So, it's nice that we had no unemployment, but I don't know if that's a right. I don't know if that's an equal exchange for getting a global pandemic, which just it was not more devastating as they claim to communities of color. Because he dismantled the group. He dismantled the group that would have seen this joint coming, so we basically were practically defenseless. And he knew that it was coming, and he didn't get stuff ready in time. He knew back as early, they say publicly February maybe not even February, but maybe November of last year.
All air flights between China and the United States by then. He actually shut all that stuff as Biden and all the Democrats said, you can't do that. That means you're a racist.
Oh, no. Dude, believe me, I'm no fan. See, this I'm much like Joe Rogan when he had the interview with Sanjay Gupta. I'm gonna let you guys know something. I'm not a Democrat, okay? The only reason I registered to register as a Democrat. Wait. This is the only reason I continue to register as a Democrat was to hopefully influence the primary of Bernie Sanders. But after that 5-year experiment failed, it's like I am done with that joint. I've been done with the Democratic Party since 2008. Since 2008, when not nonsense went down, and then I had to slowly change my thinking to get myself comfortable with not wanting to do anything with the Democratic Party at all. After the 2016, and that went down because I was like, okay, fine. You say he's like some existential threat. You say he's unique. He's gonna blow the world up. I'll vote for Hillary Clinton even though I don't want to do it. Then when I do it, she don't even win. You get all these votes and you don't even win. Now I feel dirty. There wasn't enough showers I could take in the world to wash off the stink of a vote for Hillary Clinton, but I didn't want to do it. And that's why we got to 2020. I cut all ties. Done with that joint. So all I'm saying is the Democrats ain't no better. The Republicans ain't no good. And the simple fact of the matter is everybody's a freaking hypocrite. Because I'm with you. It's like, how are you? I was talking with somebody this last night. There's all this vaccine mandate stuff. And I said, people are done with this. They're tired of it. Because even the people who are pushing it now, to your point about shutting down the airports and that's racist and you can't do this and that. These are the same people who, when old Trump launched Operation Warp Speed, would say, well, because Trump is behind that, I'm not going to take that shot. It's like, what kind of stupid statement is that to make? That's a ridiculous statement to make. Because if you happen to win 9 months from now, or a year from now, you're going to be running the same institutions that he's running, working pretty much with the same people, distributing the same vaccine. I was like, oh my God, dude. Now this ain't complicated. this ain't complicated. So you're right. It's all like it's what the George Carlin says. Since we're talking about stand-up comedy, it's one big party and you ain't in it. Whatever he said. So correct me in the comments on that one too. But it's like you ain't in it, and that's all. And so that's what woke, to bring it around town. That's what woke is that when you realize, when you have a George Carlin like understanding,
there's not really
of
two
how
parties.
the society works. There's
It's
not
all
two
part
parties.
of the same system, and it's to keep a certain group of people up and elevated
That's
over
right.
the rest of us. Yes.
The 1%.
But that's not what it means anymore, Gervais.
Oh, I know it don't mean that no more now.
It was
They
appropriate.
messed that one up too. That's right. They messed that one too. But now I guess maybe we can still say the donor class and technically be right. So it was the people who give them the money, because for all those poor people in I think it's Arizona and West Virginia. I said the way you guys are getting worked over by Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, along with the Biden administration, it's just like, man, it's like, what are we voting for? Why are we even voting at this point? They're just gonna do what they want to do anyway. But
I used
to bring it back
when I was
to
younger, I would look at like the way that they do politics in Israel and in some places where you have like 14 parties, and then whoever's the winner, obviously they don't have a majority. They end up having to go and caucus with people that they disagree with and create a majority government. That means that there's automatically some type of give and take. There's negotiations involved on the very first day, and a legitimate conclusion that is the better way to do it.
Yeah, and it's a legitimate consensus, because now it's funny because they had I think it was the election in New York for the mayor's office. Well, I guess they used ranked choice voting for the first time, and it was just like, when you look at the result, this guy Eric Adams, who I think was on some point where you would have thought was more on the Al Sharpton side of the political spectrum, but actually it tends to be like, I think more, if not right wing, center right. But basically a black former police officer who doesn't believe in defunding the police and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it's like, but what Eric Adams, I think on some level represents, and now this is what some people politically get clued into, because I watched an excellent, I brought it up before, I'm going to keep bringing it up, and I hope you guys watch it. The Manhattan Institute had a special talking about basically criminal justice reform, hosted by Coleman Hughes, where like the biggest, most profound takeaway from it is that one of the cops says is that in all these conversations that we're having, from the woke, the SJW, Black Lives Matter, whatever it is, there's one group, one demographic that's not being heard from, and that's the black and brown middle class. And what Eric Adams, his election represents, I feel on some level is that's the voice of that black and brown middle class. It's like, yeah, look, nobody wants people to be getting clunked in the head or shot by cops in the street and depriving their constitutional rights. But at the same time, it doesn't mean I want to get rid of cops, because there's so many people, they need to go to jail. It's like,
Did you see what happened at that school in Louisiana? The dads on duty thing? Did you see that?
Yeah. I think I just saw that this morning. Yeah, there was like, they had a string of arrests, like 23 or something like that. I just read the headline. I didn't read into it. It is those kind of people of color who basically, who are basically saying, look,
I can no longer trust you to do anything right. We have to come and do it ourselves.
Yeah, and that's one of the charges, even though it hasn't happened here. One of the cries were out about, we have safe passage here in Chicago, and that's one of the criticism that people, what you mean the men can't get together and do X, Y, and Z? And I said, okay, I see that on one level, but on the other hand, the simple fact of the matter is, I raised my kids. Okay. That's my contribution to society. I try to raise kids who don't end up becoming juvenile delinquents or threats to the rest of you, or people who can't support themselves. That's my contribution. When it comes to that stuff, that's what I pay taxes for police for. And all I'm saying is, do your job in such a way that you're not depriving people of their constitutional rights. That's it. It's real simple.
Yeah, but the schools have become so odd. They can no longer discipline children, and they're run amok. And obviously the schools don't have the authority or the wherewithal to actually do it themselves. Hey, sometimes, 40 dads going into a school and eliminating violence in one day and continuing their presence on there, and these more outreach programs going around the country. I'm all for it. Sometimes you got to take matters into your own hand. It's your kids I got no problem with that. On the line,
Yeah, me and my wife took matters into our own hands by sending our kids to private school. So look,
I'm with you.
Look, I can't.
Private school's cheaper than Philippines.
I feel their, I feel their pain from over here. That's all I'm saying. But no, I agree with you. Like when I went to school, it's like, look, I almost have to say, I hate to say it, but it just felt like it was just a different era. At the very least, were there things that were like janky when I was in junior high school and in the South Bronx? Of course there was, but a lot of this stuff we just as kids handle it. You handle it by fighting, and when sometimes you had fights and you would pick the time and the place, and then it would be going real good, and then the teacher realized, oh, what was going on? So walking over, everybody scattered like cockroaches. But that's what happened.
3:30.
But that was
down by the baseball fields. There's going to be a fight. Who's fighting?
Yeah,
does it matter?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Exactly.
Let me get down there. Watch it like, oh.
And the thing is that the only time occasionally we get into the aggravated assault area because somebody just don't realize, it's like, just keep it the knuckles and thumbs, and somebody got to plant a pipe or plant a knife at the preordained spot. And I noticed because one time when a friend of mine was fighting, that's what happened. They basically, like it was like Mortal Kombat or something. They had picked that spot because they already planted weapons there. They were either going to jump my friend from behind or come. So that turned to a little mini rumble. But it's like, it's not like and even when I sort of hesitate to share that, but I don't right now because Dave Chappelle has freed us from being comedy slaves. And it's like it wasn't like the Warriors. Now, even though it was like that apparently in New York at one time, but that was right before I started basically going out into the world, if you will, of the Bronx. So that's why I always recommend people to also check out a documentary called Rebel Kings, because I had no idea that was the history of my city, much less my neighborhood. Because people, when I went away to school in high school, would ask me, well, about gangs in New York. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No gangs in New York.
Well, that
apparently
based on a lot of real events.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, no. So when I saw the Warriors, I just always thought it was like science fiction or something. I was like, it was like written by some white guy who's like never been to the Bronx. But apparently, I've never been to the Bronx. Or at least the Bronx of that
Didn't you
era.
see West Side Story? What are you talking about?
Yeah, come on, man.
We
tried to show that. We tried to show that to some kids one time, and they were sitting there just like, looking at us like, that was the funniest thing I've seen in my life.
I'm kind of looking forward to the Steven Spielberg remake. I think it'll be good.
It's a great movie. And so, the kids now, like here in Chicago, for one understand, it's more like, it's clicks now from the people that I do talk to when they explain it. In New York, I think the time I was growing up, it was more like stick-up kids, or maybe like stick-up crews. There was nothing that organized. And it's funny because the only time there started to be an organized group, I think it was one gang they had called the Decepticons, but it felt like more like an urban legend. It felt like maybe one group of kids that did at one school and everybody thought. No, dude. Then the next iteration after that was when NWO was hot, and you would see all these NWO Wolfpack graffiti all over the place because now the kids were calling themselves.
Like NWO, the rap group, not the wrestling group.
No. NWO, the wrestling group. Yeah, When New World Order was big, you saw some people tagging Wolfpack Red, Black, or certain places. They did it in the community center of my co-op. Somebody had tagged it there, so it's like But that comes from like what Joseph Campbell says: when your youth do not have rituals that basically that the society has as a whole, where they can basically transition into manhood or womanhood, they make up their own, and that's what happens. So you get exactly, you get Lord of the Flies.
They make up their own governments and they make up their own rules and they live by it.
They make stuff up. So that's what that guy John DeMillis, like one of the things he was saying, I guess someone was questioning about Conan the Barbarian, and he's like, look, if you don't make some kind of entertainment that in some way informs these young men who have all this like
John
energy,
Milius, yes.
don't know what to don't know what to do with it and all that, he's like, you're just going to end up having a problem. So, it's you got to focus. You got to focus people. You got to give them you got to, on some level, humanity always requires some explanation for why they do the things that they do or why they feel the way that they feel. So, it's like, I don't know how we got over to that, but anyway.
We're going to get back on to Dave Chappelle now. We certainly took a detour around that subject, but obviously there was a lot of outcry. There were threats that there was going to be a big, massive walkout. I guess there was some people with the Netflix, they like try to barge into a meeting that they weren't welcome to. They ended up getting fired. I think that was the showrunner from Dear White People.
Okay. Yeah, I know that they had fired somebody or suspended them for basically coming into a meeting or a conference call they weren't authorized or weren't authorized.
They were demanding to be a part of it.
Yeah, demanding to be a part of it. But yeah, with the showrunner from Dear White People, that's an interesting case. But
it was a trans a white person.
Mm-hmm.
That was writing
a trans white
show
person,
for black people.
Yeah, so I was like,
Hollywood, isn't it?
Yeah, it's complicated. So there you go. It's like, okay, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but like I said, I think some people, because now this was interesting about the Brianna Joy Gray commentary, and a few other people I've heard say this as well is that a lot of what their problem with the criticism of the Chappelle special is that one, it's pretty obvious people haven't watched it, so people like watching clips of it and they're running with it from there. Now, they're not saying that when you watch this entirety, it's going to get any better, but they're saying that people have ended up making a lot of bad faith. What's that?
You will be offended. If you go in looking to be offended, you will be offended. If you go in there you wanting to hear what he has to say, it'll probably maybe get you a couple times, but he does have something to say that I think is worth hearing.
Yeah, and at the very least, at least talking about, even if you ultimately don't agree with it. But like she was saying, the point was that you have a lot of people making a lot of bad faith arguments about the special, when there's plenty of good faith arguments you can make about it that would actually be accurate and devastating to the overall point that he's trying to make. So, and I think what Brianna Joy Gray is understanding, maybe she does, is that I think that's the point that Chappelle is trying to make. It's that, and I've said this myself over many years when I've dealt with people, when I've tried to get people included in protesting about something or petitioning for a cause, is that they'll blow you off, or like, I ain't got time for that, or when they start caring about this. But it's like, then when people would come to me want to have some deep philosophical discussion about something that happened, that it's like, dude, that's been going like welcome to the party. That's been going on for years, if not decades, if not centuries now. It's like, a lot of people just want you to be mad at what they're mad at. They don't want to be mad about what you're mad at. They just want you to be mad at what they're mad at. And it's like, bro, that's not how this works. So that's, I think, if for me, a larger point of the trilogy was that it all kind of depends on who you are and what your perspective is. And that's where outrage comes from. That outrage in and of itself is intrinsically, at least the way we practice it societally, culturally, is not about justice. It's not about justice. It's just about offense. It's like, I'm offended, so therefore I'm outraged. So therefore I'm doing something, I'm addressing an injustice. And it's like, not really, because even sometimes in addressing this injustice, which is what a lot of the jokes were about, is like when he tells the one about the white trans person who basically called the police on him. And he said that basically a black gay person, trans person wouldn't call the police on him because he knows that when the police got there, he wouldn't know which one of them was Clifford. And you're going to have to watch the special to get the Clifford part. But they're not going to tell the difference, which is the same argument that a lot of people make when good middle-class black people here in Chicago and also in New York, when they're upset about what's going on in the streets because basically the kids that they raised or the kids that they raised who had kids what they needed to do, when they want to start bringing the National Guard in, it's like, look, you can bring the National Guard in here if you want to, but you best believe, I don't care if they black, white, brown, Puerto Rican, Haitian, they're not going to be able to tell the difference between Percy and Pookie. They're not from the neighborhood. And so they're not going to tell the difference between Percy and Pookie. You can believe what you want to believe on that joint. So it's like, it's like what the dads did at that school. That's what you do. I'm increasingly becoming convinced that if you want to make some changes about this stuff, you start with you first, your circle, and then if you can connect to like-minded circles, you go from there. But our society and our culture, especially our culture now, we're so divided. We can't even agree on words, much less approaches. We're so divided. The society does not have the capacity, does not have the functionality to address any kind of an issue on a large scale, because if it ain't money jacking it up, it's a lack of it. It's misinformation. It's either money or misinformation, which is screwing everything up. So yeah, I mean, with the Chappelle thing, if you watch the Dave Chappelle show and you were actually surprised that you got offended, then I don't know why you bought a ticket. Your friends don't love you. They took you to that show and you got offended. It's like, come on, man. It's like, just don't watch it. I don't watch Spartacus for that.
So we did see the president of Netflix kind of came out initially and supported Dave. We had the walkout, which I don't think was as big as they planned, but he immediately backtracks. This is the part that always like pisses me off. Make a stance or don't make a stance.
Exactly.
You can't be willy-nilly about this shit. You know, you've got Bill Burr content, you got Dave Chappelle content on your channel. Do you fucking believe in free speech or not? Because these guys are going to offend people. They say what they want to say. And I think that's why a lot of people right now, probably, you know, we have a lot of differences, but I'm drawn to stuff like this because you can't really talk anymore in society.
No. And this is why, as Jerome calls us, you're one of the good bros. That's because you mentioned the Bill Burr stuff. I'm like, come on, guys. It's like you clicked through, like Dave Chappelle said in the joke. It's like, remember, if you don't like this, remember, you clicked on my face. See, that's the part that nobody wants to talk about. Netflix, don't apologize for it. You knew, based on the first two specials, especially that reception to the Sticks and Stones one, you knew exactly what was going to happen with this closer bit. So what are you apologizing for? Much like when Chappelle did the Chappelle Show. When he first did it, if you didn't know the hornet's nest you were kicking, whacking, or stirring up, I don't believe that, first of all, but that's on you. And don't apologize for it after you already made the money. That is Netflix giving any of the money back? No. Are they taking the special down? No. So what are you apologizing for? Like you said, it's free speech, it's art, and you interpret the art however you want to. And in some cases, you don't have to interpret the art. Because sometimes we give a lot of fuel and steam to stuff that if you just went on about your day, who cares? Like this artist Lil Nas X. And it's like if it wasn't for so-called well-meaning people in my Christian community, I would have never known who this guy was. They're like, well, you got to see what's going on in the world. No, I don't. I don't need to see that video. I don't need to have it in my mind. It's like even now, I think I've successively blocked 95% of that video from my remembrance. I said, I don't need to see that. Well, this is what your kids are watching. Well, that's what my kids are watching. But this is what's my attention. I'll shut that joint down. But until then, if Lil Nas X wants to make a video like that, have at it, Hoss. I thought the controls on YouTube was such that my kid wouldn't find it. So that means somebody else's kids, because this is what do they call it? Now, you probably remember this better than I do. It's the culture of the playground, or the garbage culture of the playground. That means they saw the school someplace. All right, I can't control that. Now if they smart enough, they're wise enough, I'll say. If they're wise enough, they'll come to me and say, yo, Dad, I saw this video. Can we talk about it? If they're smart enough, they'll make sure I never find out they saw that video.
Man, I wish I knew you about 12 years ago, because I had some questions about Two Girls, One Cup. I was like, what the hell is going on? I need a father figure like Gevian, so I could be
I was a grown man. I was like, 2 girls, 1 cup. What the and sometimes that's what
like, man, you got to see this video. It's pretty crazy. Don't watch it at work though. I was like, all right.
That's right. Yeah, it took me like about 6 months to figure out what NFSW meant. I was like, what the NSFW? Oh, it's terrible. But it's like I tell a lot of parents.
I saw it. You got to see it.
Exactly. I'm like, no, I don't. But that's like a lot of parents have been calling me up about the whole Superman is gay thing, and I gotta talk them off the ledge. And I'm just like, guys, look. It's like, first of all, it is not the end of the world. There's nothing wrong with if people want to represent superheroes are doing it. I said DC apparently wants to go that route. The editors at DC want to do that, and the creators are okay with it too. I said, if it's not entertainment that you feel that you want your child to expose to, you have the right to not have them exposed to that. And it's like you just, and that's when we were talking about this back on Aficionados over the weekend. It was like the whole thing of the annoying part that I think you brought up about these people who are complaining, who have never even stumbled across, even driven like 3 blocks near a comic book store, worried about something. Now, look, when it gets to like the CW, have at it, Hoss. At least I know you're watching that. But the fact that this is going on to the comic show, where we know that basically 100,000 people, which is like what, less than 1%, 1.1% of the population. Get out of here.
0.001, probably something like
that.
Yeah,
it's like 0.000. It's like basically nobody. Exactly, basically nobody. So it's like, come on, give it a rest, bring it down to us. But yeah, it's for Netflix to apologize for something that has basically been almost a 2 to 3 year project, almost a 5-year project with a known quantity like Dave Chappelle. It's just like pander much. I mean, really? It's like, come on. They
fucking saw the special before they put it out. They knew what it was.
Exactly. You knew where he was going with this. You knew where he was going with this. So it's like I said, I definitely get I think at this point what has been the only legitimate complaint about the special is that I showed up here for comedy and instead I got political commentary. So I said, for all you people, you are the ones who've truly been wronged. You're the ones who should truly be offended.
It was an essay. I mean, he had some good.
It was.
It was entertaining at least. But I was like, I came here for the funny.
Yeah, no, and I wish it had provoked more dialogue and discussion than it apparently has. It seems to have. Yeah, exactly. Just outrage. This is like, yo, dude, but like, like I said, there's some inaccuracies and there's some real inaccuracies in the information he's presenting, but it's like the overall point. It's like, at least think about that for a minute. It's like, so there's the common thing of like, it comes to the black community when it comes to black females. Like, you can have like 100 black females go missing in a month. Even with the trans community, it's like they have black trans women who are either being victimized, assaulted, going missing, murdered, and killed, and nobody talks about it. But it's like the thought in everybody in the back of everybody's mind, whether they want to admit it or not, is let one white prominent trans woman, let something happen to her. Everybody be conducting searches all over the thing, giving money to the organization, running specials to raise money for the cause and interviewing their parents and their friends and everybody else. It's like there's always that dynamic to it. And that's why Chappelle says at one point, I believe it was during the special, he says, if you listen to this, I don't have a problem with the trans community. I have a problem with white people. And the fact that nobody's offended by that line, see, that's what you brought up in the beginning, the fact that nobody's offended by that line, that's what he's talking about. Is not Brandon Joy Gray said it was the absurdity. He finds trans people absurd. Okay, I can give you that. But what he also finds absurd is what people get mad at, what people get outraged about. The fact that he said that line and nobody's mentioned that particular line that he said at the beginning of that, it's like,
I mentioned it.
So you don't.
I heard.
I know you mentioned it. So yeah, I hear you mentioned it. So I said, you guys are just waiting for the reverse racist crowd to get going. The reverse racist contention.
We're the only people that can take a fucking joke anymore. Yeah, call me a cracker, whatever.
Cracker has never had the devastating effect that the N-word does. No, but I take your point. Yeah, it has no venom.
You can call me vanilla. I don't give a fuck.
Because my wife, when I said gringo one time, I asked her with the big deal. She said, don't say that. That's like a slur. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, yeah, the movies all the time. Gringo. I said gringo. I said, yeah. She was like, oh no, you can't say that. I was like, all right. I guess I'll excise.
They got a thing they call me anytime I'm walking in town here, right? Because I'm in the Philippines, and they don't call anybody else that. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Now I know the other one that rhymes with back and has something to do with moistness. I know you can't say that one, but I said gringo. Like, okay, because that's why I can't even find a good Speedy Gonzalez cartoon anymore. Now, I think they're doing it on HBO Max now. I think they're playing the Speedy Gonzalez cartoons HBO Max, but we in a different world, man. It's just like, and so that's like even like I see it as, because we talked about this one time before, like the whole thing of like sort of exercising entertainment, like you said, Goodfellas exist, whether you like it or not. So that's what I said to people about Quentin Tarantino. I said, I'm just really shocked. Maybe he just has all the right friends, or he just lay low enough, or he ain't making enough money that nobody's canceled Quentin Tarantino at this point. His whole body of work is just like, really? Oh my. Clutch Pearl, especially from the black community, it's like Clutch Pearl and stuff. And I don't remember any of the groups, marginalized groups, raising up in pitchforks and knives then, and torches then, but because we don't operate like that.
The coolest guy in this movie.
Well, that is true. Well, when you've watched, what was that one? The something 8, the Hateful 8, or whatever it was. That would get me nightmare. But the Hateful 8, I was just like, oh no, I'm like.
That's one of his.
Look, I like Samuel Jackson.
The one I didn't like the most is the World War II one, Inglourious Basterds.
Oh, Inglourious Basterds! I have not watched that one yet. I gotta watch that one.
I don't like anything. It's like where you take historical events and you change them.
Gotcha. Because like they successfully kill Hitler in that one, right? That's what the purpose of it.
Like, get out of here! I get you wanted to kill Hitler. Like it's a pipe dream. He's already dead. There's only one person that killed Hitler. I believe it's himself. So
that's
maybe
right.
It was his girlfriend. So
or his girlfriend. Yeah. So it's something where I think that it's like I said, the truly aggrieved here are the ones who went in expecting comedy, and basically, like you said, they got a political essay. But look, that's because he just won that. He got that Mark Twain award. He had to, feel his oats out on that one.
They need to learn something from the wrestling community. It's called "Don't Sell."
That's right. Don't sell it,
he
baby.
never would have said another fucking joke.
That's right. Don't sell it, baby. And that's what my wife said. I refuse to use a wrestling term to describe any aspect of my life. I'm telling you, this is the catchphrase of the next 5 years. Don't sell it. They don't sell it. They'll go find something else to do.
Yeah, that's why. I'm sure he could do a whole hour-long special on me. I don't sell that shit. You're never gonna get that reaction from me. You crazy?
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, that is funny. I am white. I do have a stupid voice.
Whatever. No, and that was the thing when I first came on the channel and did a debate with our good friend, with Larry, and a good friend Larry, and it's like I got a lot of comments, feedback, both good and bad, and it was like, especially I'll have to say for people in the Black community, I said, look, it's like you have to learn how not to sell it, because if you sell it, then it becomes about anything other than the point that you're trying to make. I don't know why. I don't know why this is like some cracking open a scroll and reading "Thou shalt not." It's like, dude, keep it on point, and you make your point. Somebody's waiting for you to go 100, and so you will wipe out all credibility that you have in terms of the point that you're making. Any presentation will be lost because they're going to just focus on that one thing that, as they used to say back in the day, it's over. You got triggered. So just don't sell it. Don't sell it. Absolutely. At the very least, what happens is you just move on with your life. Because Terry Reynolds said,
you get one Dave Chappelle special concentrating
exactly.
on you sell it, you get 3 of them.
Yeah, 3 of them. And each one gets progressively worse as it goes along. Because you keep selling it. Just let it go.
All right, Gevian, I think this will basically wrap us up here. I think this was a good conversation. We took a detour, but we got back onto the
we got back on track. I think even the detour was fun and hopefully informative. All
right, later, buddy.
Take care, man.